Hey, y'all, everybody doing? Welcome back to another show. This is Ulon.Life. You can reach us. Don't forget that you can call in at 312-738-1060. My name is Isan, representing the organization Ulon. And today we have our special guest in the house, Mr. Tio Hardiman. Tio, how you doing, sir?
It's an honor to be here with you.
All right. I appreciate you coming in, bro. So we're going to get right to it. Mr. Tio Hardiman is running for governor. And I think that one of the reasons that I called him in is because I've been noticing his progress through the years. He's always been a steadfast candidate. He's been very close to the people of the city. He's had a track record. But I think that nobody else can explain it a little bit better than him. So what we do is we bring the candidates on and give you a chance to call in. Make sure you guys call in with any questions that you have. I think it is time that we get somebody in there who can actually make a difference and voice their opinion. And because it's time to be heard, right?
Without a doubt.
All right, so Tio, take the floor, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come on your show here. Each one, teach one, and don't stop there.
That's right.
And really, CAN TV has been, I've been all about CAN TV forever.
Yeah, that's right.
Hotline 21, it's a great opportunity. But yeah, I'm running for governor again. This is my second run for governor. In 2014, we secured close to 28.1% of the state vote. 125,500 people voted for Hardiman for Illinois back then, and we're running again. I think we stand a great chance to win this primary because we still have a 2020 vision for the people in the state of Illinois, which represents a perfect vision. Mm-hmm. And part of the 2020 plan is actually imposing the financial transaction tax on the businesses downtown so they can pay their fair share of taxes, and also the progressive tax where wealthy people can pay their fair share of taxes. That can actually bring in $5 billion combined in new revenue to the state. Mm. So with the 4-year Hardiman and Patricia Avery's my running mate from down in Champaign-Urbana, that would be a $20 billion new revenue that we can utilize those funds to fund capital construction projects in southern Illinois and central Illinois. Mm-hmm. We can fund a lot of these organizations that service the communities at large, like mental health institutions. We can reopen some of those facilities. We can fund some of these programs to deal with domestic violence, to deal with drug addiction. So there's a lot that can be done with the Hardiman and Avery administration here in Illinois.
All right. So let's cut right to the chase. What are your goals within the next? So the voting is in March, correct?
Yeah, March 20th.
March 20th. What are your goals as of now? Let's say that we not focus on downstate right now, but just Chicago. What would you like to see within the next few months? What can you promise that you can do, but even before you get in? If you were to become governor, what are some of the things you can start right now?
Well, what I've been doing throughout my career, I'm also known as Mr. Ceasefire. Mm-hmm. My organization is Violence Interrupters Incorporated. I've been doing a lot of training nationwide in violence prevention services. But what I plan to do once I become governor is reduce homicides in Chicago by 50%. Nobody else running can stake claim to what I'm talking about there. So I plan to reduce homicides by organizing black men in Chicago like never before. Mm-hmm. See, the police, I'm not against the police, but the police can't do it by themselves. Mm-hmm. Right now, black men must step up in big, big numbers. I'm talking about 20, 30,000 strong and organize and work in their community with these young guys. Not go out there and confront the young guys, but mediate a lot of the issues in the community and bring them guys to the table.
Right. So basically what you're saying is that you have a background within this for a long time,
yes,
and you've been doing it. You know, I know the phone lines are blowing up.
Okay.
You don't mind? We will take a couple calls to see what's going on. Caller, you're on the air with Ulon.Life.
Yes,
there,
sir.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
You know, Mr. Hardiman, I'm a 69-year-old vet. I followed you for a while. Mm-hmm. When you win, are you going to try to stop some of this corruption? I mean, it starts from the city and that's why they don't have enough taxes. They have to, try the sugary tax because they're all bloated. She has a car, a driver. You don't need all those. Save $10 million to $15 million a year by doing something like that, 10%. But no,
thank you. Yeah,
go out there and tell you what potato chips I got to tax or candy I got to tax. I'm taxing that too. When you get into all this, people double dipping, tell our people, listen, there are no cranes downtown right now that African American and an Hispanic construction company can start getting the jobs so we could put our people to work so we won't have to depend on anybody else. That's what I want to say, and thank you. Like I said, I've been following you, and you got my vote.
Oh, my man.
Right.
I appreciate
Well,
that.
thank
means
you, caller.
2020 plan is to videotape all of my meetings with special interest groups. This way, there will be no margin for error when it comes down to corruption. So if people want to know what I talked about, because we should definitely bring an end to corruption in politics, and the soda tax was not a good idea from the start. So they just repealed that. So the voters should be happier now, in other words.
Yeah, definitely. Chicago political thing. So, again, Mr. Hardiman, if you are in office, let's focus on some of the violence prevention now. You know, as you know, I think and sometimes you want to know if they kind of buffed up the statistics or not. August into October, that we're down 10%. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Well, what's going on, people that are tuning in and watching the show tonight? See, Black Death is a hustle. Let's just be, you know, in the city of Chicago, last year in 2016, over 36,000 African-American people moved out of Chicago. Oh, the people are moving out of Chicago because of the high homicide rate, all the shootings, being overtaxed, overassessed, you name it. It's happening in the black community. So when I mean that, when you talk about reducing killings, there's no program nowhere in the United States of America that's going to stop killings primarily in the African-American community until African-American men unify and address this issue in their community. I say this because over the last 20 years, you've had anywhere from 450 murders a year to 700 plus murders a year over the last 20 years. Everybody steps up saying what they're going to do after somebody gets killed. How about stopping it on the front end? One thing I want to thank God for, because he gave me the ability, he anointed me with the skill set to go out there and stop some of the violence on the front end. Because it's all based on science, it's based on a public health approach. But when you talk about the nitty-gritty, black men must unify. And the reason I say black men, because over 85% of the killings that occur in Chicago take place in the African-American community. And when you say break it down, Black Death is a hustle, everybody's benefiting off Black Death.
Right.
Everybody, the funeral homes, you know, guys get shot, you know, the hospitals benefit, the penitentiaries benefit, everybody, even the community activists benefit because they go out and they speak up after the fact, but nobody wants to address the issue before the fact. So as governor, I plan to appoint a violence prevention czar. That person's sole responsibility would be to oversee violence reduction efforts and organizing people around this issue in Peoria, Chicago, Decatur, East St. Louis, Champaign-Urbana, Danville, Galesburg, you name it, North Chicago. We're going to make sure that we get the job done for the people once and for all.
All right. So, Mr. Hardiman, moving right along, because, I mean, you have definitely a mouthful. You have the background. You definitely know what you've been through. I would like to give the people, because me, myself, I know personally a lot of the past of Mr. Hardiman. Give the people some of the, I guess you could say, the portfolio of Mr. Hardiman. What has brought you to where you are now? So you mentioned ceasefire. You mentioned a lot of prevention that you've done. Tell the people, because I want people to know who this candidate is, what it is you've been doing for the last 20 plus years.
Well, first and foremost, you know, I was born and raised in the heart of the ghetto. You know, my early years was in Cabrini Green, believe it or not, brother. You know, my mother used to stay on Mohawk in them row houses over there, and she was a hairstylist back then.
Right.
So I moved from Cabrini Green to the Avalon Park community on the south side. They call it Line City. You know, basically, all my young brothers and sisters over there, we all come from Avalon Park. And then I moved from there to the Henry Horner Projects.
Okay, back out west.
Back on the west side. And then from there, I moved to the West Humboldt Park community on Chicago Avenue in Holman, and then to the Austin community. And I've lived on the far north side in Rogers Park. So I've lived all over the city of Chicago. And basically, I have a master's degree in inner city studies from Northeastern University. I work with Bethel New Life as a community leader and a community trainer. Ceasefire came later on in my career. I did a lot of work for the city of Chicago, organized over 500 block clubs in Chicago at one time in my career. So there's a lot of work that's been done. I used to oversee, I set up a foundation, the Tio Hardiman Recovery Home Foundation, in which I helped over 100 women turn their lives around from drug addiction here in Chicago. Tio Hardiman, God, and I want to say God too, because I don't want to push it like I'm doing it all myself. Tio Hardiman, along with a lot of other people, we helped to rescue 12 women out of a prostitution ring on the west side a few years ago. And you should have saw the faces of them young girls when we liberate those young girls. Some of them were Latino, African-American, and some Caucasian girls. We rescued them from a prostitution ring. I helped save the life of 2 transgender women. See, this is what people don't want to talk about, but I have to talk about it. So, yeah, I've been around, a community organizer, community leader. I'm an adjunct professor now at North Park University and Governor State University.
Right.
So I'm teaching in the field of criminal justice, and I'm running for governor because I'm tired of seeing these billionaires drown out the voices of the working class and poor people with all their rhetoric, okay? Billionaires can dress themselves up like the next coming of the great Messiah. We need help in Illinois. We need help.
Okay. So now, for those who don't know, Mr. Hardiman, you did run last. It was
2014.
Yeah, 2014, yeah. And what do you think some of the things were that might have been the pitfalls of that race? I could say personally that I know that you got over, it was a 25, close to 30,000 votes.
30%. 30%
Yeah,
of the state
30%.
vote. Right.
It was a state vote. And there was not a major financial backer.
Right.
Correct? So
Right.
can you explain to people how you did that? And not only that, I want to know like for the people that don't know about Tio Hardiman, why are you different than everybody else that's running?
Well, first of all, I'm different because I'm a black man running for governor. The governor's race has been dominated by white candidates throughout. I love all people. I'm not against the white candidates, but white men. I would love to see a Caucasian lady run for governor, a black woman run for governor. It's not just about white men leading the state all the time. You know, we got Bruce Rauner in there, and he has his issues, but I'm not going to get into that right now. The reality, what makes me different is because I represent 99% of the working class and poor people and the middle class people in Illinois.
All right.
I did some research. You only have 17 billionaires that live in Illinois. So if the billionaires support one another, they would only get 17 votes.
Right.
And if the 99.7% of the working class, poor people, and middle class people vote somebody like Tio, support Tio Hardiman, we win the election by a landslide victory. I'm different because I'm speaking truth to power. I'm not trying to be politically correct. What I'm saying is that we need to take a look at supporting one of our own. Most of the people out there know me. I know over 400,000 or 500,000 people in Illinois is just getting the people to vote for Tio Hardiman and getting the message out. Some of the pitfalls from 2014, basically just making sure you get the message out everywhere. You know, the media played games with me because I'm not the big money candidate, but I grew up in the projects. I know how to make a lot of something out of a little bit of nothing.
Right.
Some people don't understand that.
What you did.
That's what we did. We made a lot of something out of a little bit of nothing.
Right.
See, I know how to look in a cabinet. You don't see a lot of canned goods in there, and you don't have much in the refrigerator, but all of a sudden somebody's cooking a hard, healthy meal later that day.
Exactly.
So I know how to do that. So I'm running. The big money candidates will never be able to push me out of a race because Tio Hardiman represents the real deal, and I'm not running for money. I'm running to liberate the state from these billionaires.
All right.
Okay?
Well, here you go, have it, Mr. Hardiman. He is our guest tonight. We're going to go back to the phone lines
All
because
right.
I know they've been blowing up. So, caller, you're on the air with Mr. Hardiman on Ulon.Life. You there, caller?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Dion, and I just want to say I'm going to support Tio Hardiman for governor. We need somebody like him,
Right.
and he got my vote.
My man.
My man. All right,
That's
you know,
powerful.
yeah, and I think that the more people that will actually hear the the other side of, because in politics all you hear is statistics, numbers, but you really don't get a chance to hear about how people came up, where they lived. That has a lot to do with the city because people want to know, can you relate to my community? Do you know about my community? Do you know the struggles that we had? You remember when there's a moms and pop store in this corner? So let's get back to the finance. So here it is. It's 2017, and you have a really good proposal, saying on the table for what you'll allot your money for, Mr.
Right.
Hardiman. So what about the resource that we have in the community? If you were to get, say, 30 million in any type of form or fashion, however it came in from the supporters, from people like major corporations that really said, you know what, let's give this Hardiman, guy a chance, and this is after you've been voted in.
Right.
What would you do for the communities that are struggling right now, like Austin, Inglewood, Gresham, South Shore?
Yeah.
What would you do for those
But
neighborhoods?
we have to look at beyond Chicago as well, Decatur, East St. Louis, Champaign, Urbana, Peoria. We have a lot of people all over the state. Unemployment is 14.2% for African American people. That's statewide, the highest in the nation. we have 1.7 million people living in poverty here in the state of Illinois. So I have to look out for everybody. So any resources that I would receive would go into making sure that we empower people, empower these young guys. And as the governor, I can command an audience with a lot of these young guys and get them off these street corners and help them become productive members of society. My run for governor, people, is a wake-up call for the entire nation. Black folks, white folks, Hispanic folks, Asian folks should really take a look at supporting one of their own, Tio Hardiman, for governor, and Patricia Avery for lieutenant governor. Let's say no to these billionaires on every level. See, the reality is that I plan to bring the neighborhood to the governor's mansion with me. I'm not going to use the neighborhood to help me get into that office, and then once I get in, I forget about the neighborhood. See, a lot of these billionaires are going out, paying people off, hiring people to do this or that. My thing is, that's cool. Take their money, but support Tio Hardiman. And also support the increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I've been on the front line fighting for that forever. I've marched with the people at McDonald's all over the place. You got CEOs that work at McDonald's that make $2,500 an hour. So how is it that they don't want to pay people the $15 minimum wage, okay? It doesn't. It should be a no-brainer for these big Fortune 500 companies. And we're finding out, since I'm running for governor, which I already knew this, some of these big corporations are not even paying their fair share of taxes. They're getting all kinds of tax breaks, but they refuse to try to uplift the employees. So my thing is, and we found out also that women that are doing the same job that men are doing are not receiving the same pay. So we need to stop that here in Illinois, and that's what Tio Hardiman plans to do.
All right. So, that is definitely a really deep perspective from somebody who has been on both sides of the fence. I remember they were saying about Governor, well, we're not going to say names, but there was two governors before you who they said didn't even live in his mansion. Wouldn't even go see the mansion. And they were complaining about that downstate.
Exactly.
So, how can you be a part of something if you're not down there? So, for the rural areas, what are some of the things that you may want to do? Because I know we have, callers, from all over, So what about downstate? What are some of the things you can do for those people down in the rural areas?
Well, the farmers down like in Bloomington, Normal, parts of central and southern Illinois, but mainly central Illinois, you have to support the farmers on every level. Now, I don't have a problem as governor making sure the farmers receive special incentives to keep them going because they're the ones that are actually feeding the land, so to speak. Right. And you want them to have a wholesome operation, a real good operation as they begin to grow the corn, as they begin to, deal with the, like agriculture on a higher level. So we want to make sure we supply the farmers with everything in the world. Make sure they have the best of equipment, talk to the people at Caterpillar and some of them big corporations that actually sell products to farmers so they can, deal with, dealing with the land. Right. So I support the farmers. The farmers know that. I stopped by Bloomington, Illinois, and spoke with a lot of the farmers down there at one time or another, and I plan to meet with them again. And we all must depend. Right now, let me say this: if let's say a natural disaster took place in Chicago or throughout the state of Illinois, God forbid, and we cannot get access to food like at grocery stores. That's where the farmers come in at. The farmers are going to be the ones that supply us with what we need. So we cannot step on the farmers, we cannot step on the teachers, the students in school, because education is one of my priorities as well. So answering your question, I plan to make sure the state of Illinois becomes whole again. Right now, southern Illinois is disconnected from central Illinois, and the whole state is disconnected from northern, like Chicago, Illinois, because every time you talk about governorship, people thinking about Chicago. Exactly. It's not just about Chicago. I'm one of the only candidates that's elected a running mate from central Illinois because I'm thinking about the entire state.
Exactly. Really good point. So, for the long feud between governor and mayor, what are some ideas on that? Why has there always been a feud here in Illinois between governor and mayor?
But basically, it's going to be that way because you got people that have two different personalities, and then you got egos running wild. You got Rauner, who's the governor now. You cannot point to not one thing that he's accomplished since he's been the governor. But I'm not running against him now. I plan to run against him once I win the primary. So there's so much. I think Rauner is self-destructed, really. Tio Hardiman can definitely defeat Bruce Rauner. He's self-destructive in his own way, all right? Now, you got the mayor that may battle, but those guys are the best of friends. So all these billionaires are the same people. So we got to stop separating. These billionaires are all the same. They're only running for high-level office as a hobby.
Exactly.
They're not running because they really want to do good in the state. They're running as a hobby just so they can look important, so they can walk around parading around. Well, I'm the governor of the state.
Right.
You're already a billionaire.
Right.
You should be okay.
Right.
Let a working class people have that job. Let a working class person have that job. They don't even take the salary because it's all about a hobby and who's going to have bragging rights to act like they're more important than somebody else. People not going to talk about it this way.
Right.
I come from the working class population, and I would like to be the governor. I'm a former union employee. I've worked for minimum wage before, many, many years ago. I'm the only guy running for governor that stood up against police brutality, excessive force, reduce the violence, all kinds of issues. I've been there on the front line. People know me from the Hispanic community, all communities, African American, everywhere. So let's stop playing games. Quit talking about the money, because what the billionaires keep saying, that the race is not about money, but they're spending $100,000 a day.
Right.
To try to fool people and bamboozle people. I'm a woke man, okay? I'm awakened, put it like that, and I don't work on no plantation.
Right.
See, I'm not on this plantation or that plantation. Guys like me are free-minded, and I speak the hearts of the people. The people's voice is my mission. Nobody else can lay claim to the way I talk right now.
Okay. So, let's get back on coming back towards Chicago. Because what happens here, Chicago gets pushed out to the rural areas. So let's focus on the penitentiary system real quick. We have an undoubtedly growing, penitentiary system that starts from the Audi home and goes to the county, and then finalizes through the different markets. You know what I'm saying? There's downstate. So what would you do as far as, because recidivism, as we know, is just at an all-time high. You know what I'm saying? It was 82% at one time. Now I think it went back down a little bit, a couple notches, but not much. But with these young people coming in and out, because now the age has dropped all the way down to 17, because as soon as you get old enough to go from the Audi home to the county, they're already pushing you out, like 2 weeks before your birthday. So what are some of the things you can do financially, funding-wise, to help decrease our penitentiaries? Because as we know, it's $1 billion industry. It's growing.
Well, like I said, Black Death is a hustle. We know that African American people make up 16% of the population in the state of Illinois, but we make up 60+% of the prison population. So, the list goes on and on. But the reality is, I plan to convert some of those minimum security penitentiaries into institutions of higher learning. Okay. We can hire professors and teachers to help educate the prisoners that are there, so when they are released, they can actually come out as productive members of society, and therefore it's twofold. We can reduce recidivism to a degree. Right. So as your governor, I plan to make that a reality, because no one's talking about that this way. Everybody's strong. I mean, if a person breaks the law, they must deal with the punishment as far as the crime they committed. But once a person has served their time, I would like to try to help reintegrate those individuals into overall society in a productive way.
Right.
Okay.
And moving right along, only because this is your chance. And don't forget, we've only been holding off the callers online because I think this is good, because I really think people need to know who Tio Hardiman is, because you get so much of a different view from the media, instead of hearing it firsthand. Now, let's focus on some of the homelessness. Chicago is again, they just closed down 3 different tent cities, up north, and one downtown. So what can we do to face Chicago's homeless crisis?
Well, I plan to put a dent in that number. Like I said, it's 1.7 million people out of a population of 12.5 million. 1.7 are living in poverty. So as a governor, I plan to address homelessness head on and try to reduce them numbers by making sure these people have somewhere to live, somewhere to go. I support the veterans, the senior citizens, the college students, the ex-offenders, you name it, the children and people with autism, all these families, the mental health community. I support the women. I mean, it's just all over the place. As a governor, you're a leader. So I plan to lead this state. I'm not going to say to the promised land, but I plan to lead this state and make us all whole.
Big order.
Right. Make us all whole. I'm not Moses, okay?
Right.
That's right.
Okay, well, again, you guys are hearing it right here. I want to keep it going because we're running short. So let's focus on the last issue here. It's since the 90s, the police force has got a bad stench in people's mouth because they've seen all along what actually was happening with Rodney King. He was like the pivotal moment when people were like, oh my gosh, is that really happening? So now here it is, 2 decades later, going on 3, that it really is affecting people as a whole now. So in Chicago, we just had the cameras, the body cameras. What would you do to if become governor? And I don't know how much power you'd have over Chicago itself, but what could you do, some of the things you could implement for officers to get back right with not only society but these communities?
Well, I had some seasoned veteran officers that told me that during the training of police officers, the new cadets should hit the streets of Chicago without guns for 90 days. Get to know the people and don't have the people looking at you as like a force to be reckoned with, looking at you just as an officer that cares about the community. I think it would be good because the reality, there's no data to back up the fact that people are shooting at police in big numbers. So what is the issue? Have the police hit the communities, get to know the people in the community. You should not have no police out there that are scared that something's going to happen to them any given minute, or being scared of the people, put it like that. We need more sensitivity training, we need more de-escalation training, and we also need police to understand that you're going into high-risk communities, but that doesn't mean you have to be scared of the people. And and then somewhere along the way, we have to understand that there's a preponderance of evidence that dictates that the police department in Chicago, based on the Department of Justice investigation, is one of the most corrupt police departments in the nation. So we have to address some issues, and as the governor, I plan to set up a task force to deal with these issues head on as well with the Illinois State Police, the local police jurisdictions statewide. So we may have a quarterly type of conference sessions where we look at all the numbers and what's going on in all the different categories. Because overall, I plan to lead the state, and we're going to make sure we reduce violence in all index categories and also reduce the issues that the police are dealing with the community. That's important as well.
Okay. And let's kind of touch a little bit, based on that. So tell us about CPAC now. Can you, what is do you have any type of ideas for that? Can you tell people what that is?
Well, I support CPAC. That's like a civilian police accountability council, where you have individuals from the community that are not appointed by or anointed by the mayor.
Right.
See, it's a need for CPAC right now because over the last 15-something years, there have been over 10,200 police brutality complaints, and only 1% or 2% actually made it to a court.
Right.
And that's under the current administration and the previous administrations. So what the mayors do, they appoint these sellout preachers to sit on these boards, and these preachers never recommended any of these cases move forward.
Okay.
It's unacceptable. So CPAC, I support CPAC 1,000%. So, and that's what I'm pushing for. And we just have to really just keep the conversation going.
Okay, so you heard it right here. I'd like to take a chance as well. Usually I talk through the whole thing and I'm interviewing a few people, but I wanted to give everybody in Chicago and Illinois a chance to understand Mr. Hardiman because, definitely one of the promising candidates. And I can't say that, I don't support because, I do 100%.
Right.
And I think that other people need to kind of get a good idea. It's one thing when you tell people about somebody, but it's also another thing when they actually hear it firsthand. So it was a pleasure having you. I would like to finish on a final wrap-up with you.
Okay.
Let the people know exactly some things you want to know. Let them know.
Well, people can visit my website at hardimanforillinois.org. That's hardimanforillinois.org. If you have any questions, just get involved. Help Tio Hardiman make history by defeating big money politics. I would love to go down in history with my running mate to defeat all these big money individuals out here without a whole lot of money, okay?
Right.
And I think that would be major because we're going to use the money against these big money candidates because everybody's not feeling these candidates the way they think they are. Because, see, remember, the black vote is a hustle as well. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. But Tio Hardiman is the real deal. And plus, I want to be seen as a hip-hop governor as well. I want to relate to everybody.
You're right, exactly. So it was a pleasure, man. I want to say that you can find out any more information you want on Ulon.Life. We still have available beds, opening spaces. Call 312-834-8020.
Yes.
That's 312-834-8020. And, man, remember our slogan, as always, each one, teach one, and don't stop there. It was a pleasure, Mr. Hardiman.
My man, appreciate you.
All right, God
Right.
bless you, brother. All right.
Right.
Love you guys. Holla back.
Peace out.